Nature's Homestead. Welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to take my bread recipe, so my tried and true whole grain bread recipe that I make a couple times a week, and we're going to turn it into a pizza crust. So this is really simple to do. In fact, you don't even have to change the recipe at all. You're just going to change the process. So first thing you're going to do is you are going to add in a little bit less than 2 cups. Now I talk about this every time I talk about or make any recipe that I'm trying to form into a dough that I'm going to roll out, shape, anything like that. It is always easiest and best to start with less water than what the recipe calls for, because that is really easy to add in than trying to add in flour if you have too much water. So in order to get the right consistency of your dough, the easiest way to do that is to do less water or less liquid and add in all your flours and everything, and if you need to add a little bit more water, you can do that. The thing with gluten-free baking and anything with breads and stuff like that is when you're building your flour, you have to have the right ratios. And so it's almost next to impossible to add more flour in and stay with the right ratio that you need. Brown rice flour, sorghum flour, and tapioca starch, which is the 3 flours I use in this recipe. So for that reason, I start with less water. So I have about 1 3/4 cup of warm water here. I'm gonna add in a tablespoon of active yeast. If you have already been making this bread recipe, it's the exact same video to make the bread, so you can skip all of this part and just watch towards the middle of the video where I show what to do once you have your bread dough. So if you've never made the bread recipe, then you can watch this part. I'm gonna add in 4 tablespoons of honey. This is a raw honey, that's what I buy. I buy it actually in a 5-gallon bucket. That's local, but because we're heating this recipe up, it does not need to be raw, but that's what I have, so that's what I use. Okay, then you're gonna turn this on for a second or 2, and then I'm gonna let it proof. While it's proofing, I'm gonna get all of my flours mixed up. Okay, so the flours that I am using are sorghum flour, brown rice flour, and tapioca starch. You can also use white rice flour, and normally I freshly mill these when I'm making my bread recipe. It's just a lot healthier for you, but since I'm pushed for time, I always do have some that I buy that's already ground up, and so I'm gonna go ahead and use that. So I'm gonna do 100 grams of sorghum flour. Now it's really important to use a scale, a digital scale. I use mine all the time, but when you're doing any kind of gluten-free bread making, sourdough, anything, it's just so, you cannot get the right ratios with volume. So I am just using I think I got it for like $10 on Amazon. I'm just using a regular kitchen scale there, and it works just fine. You know what? I lied. I'm not doing brown rice flour. I grabbed the white rice flour bin. I could do brown rice, but I decided to do white rice today for the pizza dough. And I'm gonna do 280 grams of this. Okay, and I'm actually gonna set this one aside because I'm gonna use this to roll it out. And now I'm going to clear it, and I'm going to do 120 grams of tapioca starch. Okay. Now I have measured 2 teaspoons of salt here that I'm just going to add right to the bowl. And I want 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Okay, so I'm just gonna set that aside. This is nice and fuzzy. I'm gonna go ahead and put it on the kitchen scale, and I'm gonna add in 30 grams of psyllium husk powder. You could also do about 26 grams of whole psyllium husk. I always use the powder in this. Now, psyllium husk is not all the same. If you want to know more about different binding agents when you're doing gluten-free, make sure to watch the video that I did on the different gluten-free binding agents and which ones to use for what. Psyllium husk is a great one for bread products. Okay, so I'm going to do 30 grams since I'm using the powder. And I'm going to take this whisk here and I'm just going to stir it up so that it's all nicely incorporated, and you're going to let it sit for just a minute or two and let it become a gel. While that is sitting, I'm going to go ahead and melt a full stick of butter. If you need to be dairy-free, you can use avocado oil or olive oil in place of that. You would just do 6 to 7 tablespoons of the olive oil or avocado oil. Okay, so I'm ready to move on, and I already added stuff to the bowl without filming. I don't know what's going on here. Okay, so I added all my flour mixture that was in the bowl that we just measured out into the bowl, and I put 2 eggs in here. That's as far as I got with the camera off. Now I'm going to take this stick of butter that I've melted and add that into it. And you're going to want to do 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. This is for the texture, so you don't want to skimp on that or not use it. Okay, now you're going to go ahead and churn this on. And you're going to watch it, because if it needs more water, then you're going to go ahead and add splashes of water as needed. So I can see that it needs water, so I'm just going to use my pot here that I have, and I'm going to add a little bit more in. Now you want to be really careful, because if you overdo it, then you're no better than you were if you would have added too much water to begin with. So just a splash, and let it keep going. Splash more. And I think I've got the right consistency. So I'm going to let this go for a minute to make sure that psyllium husk gets all the way through the dough and you don't have clumps of it. All right, now we're going to get this onto the counter. So I have my oven preheated to 425, or it's climbing right now, it's getting preheated. I have a pizza pan here that is lightly sprayed with some avocado oil, and I'm going to start shaping my dough. So you're just going to lightly flour your surface with your rice flour, whether that be brown rice or white rice. And I just kind of flip it over a few times and knead it just so that it's got no stickiness left in it, and it'll be a little bit easier to work with. You don't want to add too much flour to it, otherwise, again, your ratio won't be right and it'll affect your texture, but a little bit is not going to hurt it. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this dough directly in half. I'm going to give a little bit more to the pizza side because I want to have a nice pizza crust. And I'll tell you what you can do with the other one. This recipe makes 2 pizzas, large pizzas. If you don't need 2 pizzas, if your family's not super big and you don't need that much, I split it in half. And I take the other half and I turn it into hamburger buns that are gluten-free, and you can freeze those in the freezer and you'll have hamburger buns ready to go for a meal quick whenever you need it. So that's how I do it. Now you can do this 2 different ways, and you can roll this out right on the counter. And I do that sometimes, but I find that it's sometimes hard to really get it moved then to the pizza pan. So you could do that on a piece of parchment paper, or you can do it lazy like me and just take it straight, put it on the pan. I kind of flatten it as much as I can, and then I just use my hands to roll it out and make it fill the rest of the pan. It works really nice that way, and then I don't have to worry about trying to scrape it off of my counter and move it and get it into the pan. So it's going to rise a little bit in the oven. So this is, it's okay if it doesn't touch completely and fill your pan, but I just work at it and try and get it spread out as best I can and fill my pan to get ready to bake. Okay, I have it all the way filled into all of my pan, and I didn't have to worry about it breaking while I was moving it. And now, with my preheated oven, I am going to pop this in and I'm gonna bake it for 10 minutes before I add any of the toppings. Okay, so with this extra dough, I am gonna go ahead and make some hamburger buns. It's always nice to have hamburger buns in the freezer and ready to go for on a whim or just a quick, easy meal. You can do different sandwiches with it, and it's just nice to always have it, and they freeze really well. So I'm just taking little bits of it and rolling them into a ball, putting them on the sheet. I'll let them rise, and then I will bake them at the 425. Other things you could do with this dough, you could do a cinnamon roll with it, roll it out and add a cinnamon brown sugar to it. You could do a, I'm trying to think what else you could do with it. You can make little loaves of bread. You could do, ooh, that would be good to make little bread bowls for soup, like a little soup bowl, because there's just a little bit left here. You could do pizza pinwheels, which I can link from the blog. There's just lots of different things that you can do with this dough. I always tend to make the buns because we go through them really fast. Now, while these are rising, that is finishing baking for the next 5 minutes because it's been going for about 5 minutes. I'm gonna get my toppings made, my cheese shredded, and we will be ready to top our pizza and get it baked. Canned yet, working on it, bringing tomatoes in. I don't know if you can see in the video, there's a whole bowl of tomatoes back there on the counter that I need to put up. So I just took a can of tomato sauce that I'd gotten from As Your Standard, and I added some basil, some oregano, some garlic, salt, pepper, and kind of made my own little pizza sauce. The pizza's gonna come out of the oven right now, and I'm going to let it cool for a bit, and then we're gonna add all of our toppings on. Okay, so the pizza is out of the oven. You'll see that it's just a little bit golden brown around the edges, and that's exactly where you want it to be, because once we add our topping, we're gonna bake it again, and you don't want it to burn, but you want it to start cooking. If you just roll it out and add your pizza toppings to this specific dough, your dough won't have enough time to cook before your toppings are cooked, and it stays really soft and mushy, and you don't get that harder crust. So it works best if you bake it for about 10 to 12 minutes, just depending on how hot your oven runs, and then you take it out, let it cool just slightly, and then you can add your toppings on and put it back in the oven and bake it the rest of the way. I went ahead and put my buns in the oven, so those are going right now. Then I'll pull those out. This will be ready to go back in, and it'll just keep going back and forth. So let's start putting our toppings on, all right? She's my helper. Don't touch the pan though, because it's hot. Just go ahead and pour a little bit in the middle. That'll be good, and then take the back of your spoon and spread it out. Okay, now we're going to put on the cheese, so go ahead, all over. We want a heavy layer of cheese, because cheese is good on pizza, huh? Yes. Yeah. Okay, since I don't really have any other toppings that they like, no, I don't have any pepperoni, otherwise I would put pepperoni on. So I will leave it cheese for the family, but my favorite way to eat pizza is to saute up a little bit of breakfast sausage and vegetables. And so I always make myself just a little square or triangle with my slices. And I just kind of spread it around, gives me a couple slices, and then the rest will stay cheese for them. You don't like mushrooms and spinach and broccoli all together? Okay, now your pizza is ready to go. We'll go ahead and put it back in the oven at 425. And really, I don't have a time frame for you on that. Just watch it. I would say no more than 15 minutes. Just you want your cheese to be all bubbly and kind of brown a little bit, and whatever your toppings are on, if they're not already cooked, make sure that they're cooked. And then you're ready to let it sit for a second and then slice it up, and you'll have the most delicious pizza. Make sure to like and subscribe to the video. I send out one new video every single week. Jump on over to the blog and put in your email address, because I send out an email a week over there where I send out whatever video I did that week, and then different recipes and farm life and things like that. I hope that this video was helpful in getting something easy. If you are gluten-free, you don't have to miss out on pizza. You can make your own delicious pizza right at home with the same recipe you make your bread with. It is so good, right?
Yeah.
We'll see you next time. Take care.